why she believed it, which is good enough for her.
Did you say, though, that Sharia law was in place in Dearborn right now?
I had read that in one place that they had started using some Sharia law there. That's what I had read.
I have no doubt that you have, in fact, read that, Sharon Engel. If you have been reading around in conservative media world recently, you have read a lot of stuff like that. And because that media world is now so big and so well funded that it is self-contained and self-sustaining, there is no debunking of this stuff anymore. It just becomes true by dint of mutual conservative reinforcement and repetition.
Their mission is to blur or completely erase the borders between Canada, U.S., and Mexico to get goods and services freely flowing between all three countries in the dream of one big, happy Mex-Americanada.
I guarantee you it is one of their long-term goals to have, one sort of borderless mass continent.
American scientific companies are crossbreeding humans and animals and coming up with mice with fully functioning human brains.
You want to know what happened in Laredo? Did you hear what happened in Laredo? Oh my God. A Mexican drug gang called the Zetas. The Zetas rampaged over the border and took over 2 ranches in Laredo, Texas. American ranches now being run right now by a Mexican drug gang. Mexican drug gangs have officially breached the border. The invasion from Mexico has begun. Did you hear about it? Did you hear about it? If you live in right-wingville in this country, then I'm sure you have heard all about it. None of it is true. None of those things actually happened. Talk to you guys.
Thanks, Lisa confirmed Eric Holder, and we disagree with that.
She what?
Kind of voted to confirm Eric Holder.
And why are you against that?
Because he's the most anti-gun attorney general this country has ever had.
What's he done on guns that you're upset about, though? Just so
I honestly, I don't know enough about him to answer that truthfully, Rachel.
Can I just ask why are you upset about Eric Holder?
Because he's anti-gun.
What has he done that's anti-gun?
I don't have all the facts, but I know that he is anti-gun.
A little baby with ink on their foot, stamped right there on the birth certificate. There's one in this country we haven't seen.
Get it? Barack Hussein Obama. Haven't seen that birth certificate yet. With the little feet. Again, for the record, Barack Obama was born in Hawaii. Eric Holder hasn't done anything against gun rights. Mexican drug gangs are not seizing ranches in Texas. Mice with human brains. That one, actually, I take a pass. I can't disprove that. But Mex-Americanada, I can say with confidence, not actually happening. This is not just about gullible people believing untrue things. It is about what's new in America about gullible people believing untrue things. There is a closed-circuit, giant, super well-funded conservative media machine that not only promotes this stuff when it is politically convenient, but they reinforce it and validate it and fend off any ability to debunk this stuff. So things that would have been disprovable myths in times past in America now become conservative truths. Things that can be easily disproven outside of conservative America can never be disproven if you live in their closed-circuit world on the right. The other thing that's new is what happened on Tuesday night. Politicians who are a product of this media culture, who raise their money for their campaigns on Fox News. The undebunkable faith-based fact horde is going to Washington. And as they get there, that becomes itself another means of validating these politically convenient, made-up things. They now put the prestige of the U.S. government, the portion of it that they control at least, behind all of this made-up stuff. Their new positions of power help to validate all of these otherwise totally disprovable things.
I keep reading that Obama keeps bringing small quantities of Muslims into this country. Why can't Congress stop that?
Okay, freeze frame. You're a member of Congress. You are Republican Congressman Steve King of Iowa in this case. You get asked that question by a constituent. You have not heard that specific conspiracy theory about Obama and the tiny quantities of Muslims he keeps sneaking into the nation. What do you say when confronted with this question? Here's the difference between you and the new Republican Congress. This is how Republican Congressman Steve King chose to respond to that thing he'd never heard before.
I keep reading that Obama keeps bringing small quantities of Muslims into this country. Why can't Congress stop that?
You know, I don't know what the basis is of that. I wouldn't be surprised that is the real factual basis.
To be clear, Steve King, a serving member of Congress, has never heard that crazy story before. He doesn't know it to be true. It has never crossed his mind before. But there he is telling a member of the public that You know, I wouldn't be surprised. It very well might be true. Because, you know, sounds good. So now Obama has tiny quantities of Muslims on him at all times, and he's taking 34 warships with him to India, and these things cannot be disproven. There is no debunking process anymore. If you do not live in right-wing land and you agree that those things have been debunked, if that's not your reality, how do you ever talk to those people? Joining us now is humorist and author of More Information Than You Require, a man who is an expert in fake facts, John Hodgman. John, it is great to see you. What are you doing?
A vampire! Oh, no, you're not a vampire. But I never did notice that you have I Hate USA tattooed on your eyelids. I heard someone say that on television once.
You know, and on television it must be...
I also read it somewhere. In fact, I wrote it down and I read it.
Is there a place that all this stuff comes from? Is there a somewhere?
Yes, the internet. That's where it comes from.
Right.
Would it make you more comfortable if I put this on the internet and then it would be true?
Then it would be true because it would be citable with a hyperlink.
Absolutely. Well, there have always been conspiracy theories and tall tales and urban legends and that sort of thing within the political world and without. But now we have this gigantic, massive churning, rumor-mongering machine, the biggest that's ever been invented by humans. And the internet is wonderful in terms of fracturing media into places where marginal viewpoints that couldn't previously get into the conversation can now get into the conversation. Yeah. But it also means that a lot of other marginal viewpoints that we would consider crazy are getting in and sticking around and never going away.
And that, I feel like that's the political dynamic that we went through, that in the early days of the post-John McCain Republican Party and conservative movement, I remember we would have like screen graphics that would say things about like, oh, the fringe is moving to the center.
Right.
Because the idea of believing conspiracy theories used to be a fringe thing.
Right.
But now there's no qualitative way to distinguish.
Well, I mean, you know, when Sarah Palin and John McCain both made an innuendo that Barack Obama was hanging around with domestic terrorists. Yeah. I mean, that's a serious accusation. Something you'd expect to hear in the hullabaloo of a political campaign from low-level, you know, sort of supporters. But from the candidate and vice presidential candidate, that was a real change. At least I sort of took a deep breath when that happened.
Because you would want the candidate and the vice president, the presidential and vice presidential candidate to serve as, if not leaders, at least arbiters of seriousness? Is that what you want?
Yeah,
you want them to be filters?
Because behind that innuendo is an incredibly serious assertion that the other person is a criminal.
Yeah.
And, you know, John McCain did not look comfortable making that. But Sarah Palin looked very comfortable, and in no way was she punished for it, obviously.
Is there a way for truth to conquer fake facts? I feel like there's no way to talk to Steve King. There's no way to make that better.
Yeah, I mean, well, Steve King is a perfect example. He's afraid now that that might be a big conservative conspiracy theory that he dare not refute for fear that he'd be told, oh, you don't believe in the truth, do you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of concern about these things because they are taken so seriously now. And look, I don't want to make a false equivalency. Anytime you have an echo chamber, you know, in the left wing or right wing, these sort of like self-preserve, or, you know, myths that require no evidence do crop up. But it does seem that the preponderance of it happens on the right wing, or at least I just said that on television. So
therefore it's true. And citable.
Yes.
How do you construct the perfect political fake fact?
Well, it has to have a ring of truth, or at least speak to what people are afraid of. Now, the Republicans created a very strong storyline from the beginning with President Obama, that he's an effete snob, profligate, and probably foreign, and maybe from another planet, right? So you have to tell something along those lines. If I were to tell you that I happen to know, for a fact, because I read it somewhere, that Barack Obama sleeps standing up while covered with moths, that's not going anywhere. That's crazy town, right? That makes no sense because it doesn't play into fears.
Right.
But if I were to tell you, did you know that Barack Obama spent $10 million of taxpayer money to the Jimmy Carter estate to get one of his old cardigans to use as a prayer rug on Air Force One? That's on the internet right now.
Right.
And the crazy thing about that, the thing about the moths is actually true.
Yeah. Exactly. And also something about which I am afraid it might work on the left.
Right.
Excellent. John Hodgman, fake fact expert, humorist, the author of More Information Than You Require, and an all-around pal of the show.
Oh, gosh. Thank you very much.
Nice to see you.
Oh, boy.